everyone. Welcome to another Overseas Living Unlimited webinar, and thanks for being here today. My name is Sophia, and I'm the editorial director at Live and Invest Overseas. And with us today, we're very excited to have, once again, Michelle Miller-Sjogren joining us. She's the author of our Boca Chica issue. And Michelle, I just want to say thank you so much for coming back on the webinar. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's always fun.
What about cost of living? Was this the type of place where you can reduce your cost of living by relocating there?
Absolutely. So I was telling you, we just got back from the US. And wow, it was so good to be back in the land of $6 ceviches and $6 Caesar salads. Wow, we were paying, $22 minimum for a fish plate in the US. And a fish plate, there's $8. You're talking about a third of the cost, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true with rent too. Rent's about half, if you can find a decent place for $1,000 a month. It just seems like in these desirable areas near the beach, are you kidding me? In Southern California?
Yeah, no.
You have to share, a room for $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
I think.
And it's US dollars, so it couldn't be easier in terms of, currency. You're not at a currency disadvantage here. You don't have to worry about exchanging money or anything like that. So that sounds great to me, especially, again, I'm in London. Nothing is easy here in terms of cost.
Yeah, so, and I mean, I feel like you can't leave the grocery store for under $50 in the US, and that's probably a bag or two. And for $50 here, wow, you're going to have like 6 bags, 7 bags, 8 bags that will last you 2 weeks.
Right. Definitely important to think about. What about, so you mentioned rent, and I know you mentioned in your article it's a bit harder to find long-term accommodation. So would you say about $1,000 a month is what you're going to want to spend in Boca Chica, or what you're going to want to have, I should say, for rent? And how hard is it going to be to find a place to rent out?
Yeah, see, it was hard for me to locate reasonably priced long-term accommodation. And it seems like your most basic, but in that Istana area where everybody tends to like, closer to the Rincon Beach, which is probably the most beautiful beach that we've seen on mainland Panama. It's looking at like $1,000 a month for just a little studio. I do think you can find something more reasonable in Boca Chica proper, or like, I think it's San Lorenzo or Horconcitos. Horconcitos is the next little town up the road. But again, you're probably looking at something pretty basic for what you pay. And who knows, you might be able to find something for $200, $300, but it's going to be like a typical Panamanian home. You're going to be further from the beach and like the expat action. But I definitely see that as a need and would love to see somebody, invest in some long-term rentals. It just seems like, to me, that's the ideal retirement situation of not having to deal with high turnover, having somebody pay $650, $700, $800 a month for your 3-4 rentals that can still be kind of basic but clean and have AC. To me, that's a real need in this area, and it seems like a great retirement plan.
For sure. It couldn't be easier. You just set it up and then let the monthly amounts roll in. Sounds ideal.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, I know you have some experience with building in Panama. If you can't find a place to rent long-term, how feasible would it be to build your own little 2-bedroom small house in the Boca Chica area.
Yeah, well, my husband and I started doing everything ourselves with very basic Spanish skills when we first got here in 2005, and we were able to get it done, and we learned along the way. You've definitely got to have a willingness to learn the language. I was joking saying you need a meditation practice just for patience, right? Because as we've all heard, like building and dealing with local employees and some of the cultural differences can be challenging. If you're not up for that learning curve, it's also building can be just a series of problem solving. Here,
Right.
you've definitely got to be able or willing to put the time in to be there on site. Because if you're not there, sometimes even windows can get forgotten and things like that. It's like, wait, you went too high. What happened to the window? So, I mean, those kind of things happen. Things that you think just can't happen do. So you've definitely got to be prepared mentally, emotionally for that. Have some Spanish skills, probably a little background in building, or at least understand how things work, a bit.
Yeah.
But yes, it's possible.
It's possible. You just want to be a bit hands-on with it. You can't just hand off the plans and then leave the country and come back, and your house will be there ready for you.
Exactly. And I will say that my husband has basic knowledge in electricity, in like mechanics, in like structural stuff. He was an Alaskan fisherman and fixed a lot of things on boats and things like that. He had never really worked construction, but he had a general understanding of electricity and how things work. And that definitely comes in handy.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about was residency in Panama. I know there's been some big changes recently. And normally we recommend Panama as the easiest place to get residency in the world, but that has since changed because a couple of months ago, rules for the Friendly Nations visa were altered. So previously, you could get a Friendly Nations visa by depositing a certain amount in a bank account. I think it was around $5,000. Anyone from, if you're a citizen of 50 odd countries, you could get residency in Panama. And you could also get a work permit, which was a unique offering. Not a lot of countries out there will give you that so easily, even without a work offer or a job offer, I should say. But now it has changed. So nowadays, if you want to apply for Friendly Nations residency permit, you either need to have a firm, solid job offer, or you need to invest in real estate. And the amount that they've put forward for that is $200,000. So it's not quite as attainable as it used to be, at least not for the average person. But Panama still has some really great options. So one that we were talking about before this was pensionado visa, which is the pensioner's visa. And to qualify for that, you just need to prove that you earn $1,000 a month in some sort of fixed income way. So either through a pension, Social Security, something similar. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Panama is less appealing if you're going the Friendly Nations route, but it still has some great options like the pensionado visa. And we were talking about some of the benefits of the pensionado. So with that, you get discounts on all sorts of things. So, for example, hotel stays, you get a 30% discount on hotel stays in Panama. You get 20% off medical consultations. Michelle has a really great long list of all the discounts that you get with the pensionado visa. And then there's a few other new things. So one that you wrote about was the remote worker visa. So countries all over the world are introducing these residency things aimed at digital nomads and remote workers, since that has become such a big trend all around the world. And so Panama has one as well, but it is not as appealing as it might sound, because first of all, you need to earn $36,000 a year to qualify. And then it's only valid for, I think, 9 months at a time, and you can renew it once, so 18 months total. But as you pointed out, Michelle, it can take 6 months for your visa paperwork to process. So if you're waiting 6 months for it to come through and it's 9 months total, it's giving you 3 months, which isn't great. There are better options, I think, if you want to live in Panama on a long-term basis. So I think those are the sort of major changes to the residency stuff that I just wanted to go over for everyone here.
Well, and also I pointed out, and I think it's really important, if you do get the pensionado visa, you're not legally allowed to work with that.
That's
so
true.
It really depends what you want to do. Like if you were going to have a few long-term apartments, that can probably fly under the radar as not really working. But if you wanted to open a restaurant, a hotel, you probably are going to need the Friendly Nations visa.
Right. And then another new option that was introduced. So Panama has like a golden visa type residency through investment program, which came out, it was established last year. And it's also an option, but it has some high entry points. So you need to invest right now $300,000 in real estate to get it. But this amount is about to go up in October 2022. The minimum investment amount is going to be $500,000. So another thing to think about, it might be more appealing to more high net worth individuals, but yeah, Panama has a few different options there. It's worth looking into depending on your circumstances and what you want to do here. So what about taxes? We were chatting a bit about taxes before the webinar started. Do you still, Panama's a known tax haven. What sort of tax benefits can people take advantage of there?
Yeah, we were talking about what used to be called Ley Ocho or Law 8. I believe it's now called Ley 80, Law 80. And this is another tax benefit for people who are investing in tourism, or I believe also agricultural. I'm not up on all of this, but I know that we started the process with our hotel years ago, and it was a paperwork nightmare, but it does give you 20 years tax exemption on property tax. So something else to consider, people we know who just built a hotel are going through the process. But also you need to look at where you're living and if they do charge for property tax. I know legally you are supposed to pay it, but no one knows how or where. Right. And who knows, it might catch up to, someone someday. But at this point, it doesn't really seem like it. So taking a look at the benefits before you start the paperwork maybe as well. But it is something interesting to look into. And I know there's other benefits besides the 20-year property tax exemption.
It's really interesting because it sounds like there's a discrepancy between like what the law says and what people actually do. And that's true of expat destinations all over the world. Kind of a different, how things are practiced on the ground are different to what the law says. So I guess it's worth talking to other people about, like, if you want to go to, say, Boca Chica, talking to the other expats and seeing how they handle things could be beneficial for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that you're expected to pay business tax and personal income tax here in Panama as well. And getting an accountant is definitely beneficial. I'm sure there's some English speaking accountants in David.
Yep, definitely. Speaking of David, so you mentioned it's where you go for pretty much anything important. Would you say that with the healthcare options in David, are they good enough to handle most medical concerns? Like maybe with the exception of someone who has something very serious who needs constant monitoring? is David going to meet your needs for healthcare?
I'd say so. The people I spoke with for the Tierras Altas article that just came out, Eric and Nancy of the Wandering Sloth, they both have surgery in David, and they were perfectly happy with it. And they brought up a good point in that the same doctors that work in the private facilities and the really fancy schmancy facilities, say the John Hopkins in Panama City, also travel and work in the public facilities. And so you're getting the same level of care. What you may not be getting is the same level of cleanliness, or like with the nursing staff, maybe not the same level of care. But as far as doctors go, they're the same doctors that work at the private facilities and the public facilities. Would I want to have like something major done in a public facility? I haven't seen. I think there are some private hospitals in David as well, though, and they sound very clean and very like first world. Where I am, not so much.
Right. So would you rate then Panama City is your next best option if you had something serious to take care of?
Yeah, and I think that's where you would need to go for, say, chemotherapy, other procedures, maybe if you are having an organ removed or something that serious. And my husband actually had some serious procedure done at the John Hopkins. So,
okay, at least there's that option as well. Panama City's close.
Yeah, and the cost of that is still just a fraction. Even if you go to the fancy schmancy private facilities, it's still a fraction of the cost. Maybe a tenth of the cost is what you pay. Obviously, in the U.S. is different than where you have socialized medicine, but it's definitely reasonable.
Okay.